Welcome to Business Brains and the Bottom Line. My name is Paul Delegro, your host today, and my guest today is John Reidy. He's a senior mortgage loan officer with Prime Lending, and actually their corporate office is here in Dallas, but he's actually out of Poughkeepsie, New York. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Glad to be here. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, no, we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
So I like to do this with certain people that come on the show. I kind of level set with everybody. So again, I seem to have been having a lot of childhood friends. Johnny is from Somerville, Massachusetts, and we go back a long time through. I played a lot of baseball together, American Legion and high school, and we've been friends ever since. So we go back a long ways. One of my best friends.
Yeah, we do go way back, don't we? And we've had a lot of laughs over the years, and fortunately, I'm so thankful for it. We've kept in touch all these years too. So
I mean, it was tough there for a while before technology and cell phones, right? Yeah. But once technology took over, like I talk to all my buddies back from home a lot, and it just because of text messages, cell phones. We did Zoom calls during the pandemic, so. Yeah, but it's been nice.
Some of your buddies are in prison. So
well, that's true. Really, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I wanted to throw that out there because obviously I think our upbringing has impacted the way the way we've run our lives, right? It's made us who we are. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So John, the topic for today is you and I have had many conversations about mortgages, right? And so when people hear mortgages, it's the ABCs, and so. I'd like to talk about what should people do? What are the 8-10 things people should do to make sure that they're set up for success when they're going for a mortgage? And then we'll talk about some of the fun stuff that, you've shared a lot of stories with me about what not to do and what things people try to hide and all this stuff. But, John Doe, he's going for a mortgage. He calls you up. What do you tell him?
Well, one of the things that you just said is very important, which is, it seems like it's ABC, right? It should be very, very simple. And that should be the case, really. But to be honest with you, it's not simple because people don't follow the ABC rule too much. And I would say one of the biggest things that is going to make somebody successful in getting a mortgage is to be fully prepared. And when I say fully prepared, I mean, I've had people call me and say, yeah, I'd like to get a mortgage. And my first question is, okay, so what's your gross annual income? And I've had people sit there on the phone go, I don't know. I mean, what do you mean you don't know? You gotta know, right? So what I tell everybody is if you want to be successful in getting a mortgage, you have to have done the background work.
Right.
You need to get yourself prepared. Preparation is key. Know what your income is. Know what your assets are. Know how to present yourself because that's what you're doing. So when you're asked to bring documentation, send documentation to me, do it as if you're presenting yourself and presenting your financial history and your financial picture. And if you keep that in mind, it makes it a lot easier. Especially, I've had people do the preparation and they fly through the process because they ID their income, their pay stubs, their W-2s are marked, labeled, their tax returns are marked and labeled, their assets are marked and labeled. Everything's spelled out, and they're presenting themselves. Right. And that's how you get through the process because we have to look at all that stuff no matter what.
Yeah, and nowadays, Johnny, I mean, it's so simple to get you documents. I mean, I've actually had a few loans from Prime Lending, as you know, we've talked about that, and your process is so simple. There's a site you go to, you upload all your bank statements, W-2s, tax returns, on and on and on, asset statements, and you don't even have to come face to face with somebody.
Well, there's there's the wave now of people going online And a lot of younger people like that. They go online and they put their information in. And that is good in some ways, but it's also bad in other ways, because I've had many people say they went online. The realtor took their pre-approval, went out and started looking for houses. And then they said, you should just call John Reidy. He'll give you some information about what you need to do. And I've asked the question, where did you get your pre-approval from? Well, I did it online. Okay. So the next thing I ask is, all right, so what's your base income? And your base income's this, I make this. And, oh, okay. And what about, do you have any other income? Yeah, I have overtime. Okay. Well, how long have you had it? Well, I've had it about a year. You can't use it. So all this time, they think they're making $100,000 between base salary and overtime, and reality is they're making $75,000, and the $25,000 in overtime cannot be used.
Right.
So they're looking at
it can't
houses
be used,
with that.
It can't be used ever, or just they have to have sustained it for X amount of time.
You need a 2-year history showing it that it's been sent. You've been earning it, and it's on your tax return.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense, actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
but that goes back to the ABCs of the whole process, and people go online and they put that in there, and then a realtor takes that information and says, okay, this is good, I'm good, and now they're out looking at $300,000 houses, and they really can't afford that at all. So
yeah,
that's why it's important to talk to a loan officer more than anything else.
So there is a difference between actually a quasi pre-approval and a real pre-approval, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. You can go online and say, hey, I make this, and they say, oh, you qualify for this, and so the guy thinks he's qualified for it, right? But I know one of the last mortgages I got for, we own a couple of, income properties, and I did it with prime lending, and we actually literally were pre-approved. All we had to do was sign on the dotted line. We got, we went through the whole process, which I think makes more sense. I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, if you know you're going to do something, wouldn't it make sense to have all that done ahead of time? No?
Well, most people call me and they'll say, I need a pre-qualification, and I'll take their information, I'll run their credit, and I will trust that what they're telling me is actually going to be documentable. But I usually take it a step further because, I have a reputation as well with my realtors. And so what I want to make sure of is that whatever they put in there is actually quantifiable, it's documented.
Verifiable, yeah.
Right. And what I'd like to do is I say, listen, you're qualified. Here's your qualification letter, but I'd like to take it one step further. Send my assistant, Debbie, all your documentation,
right,
your income, your assets. We put it through. And what we do is we get an underwriter to review it, and the underwriter will approve their income, assets, and credit subject to them finding a property. So that's really the way you want to do it, because with the environment today, inventory is so low.
Right.
You have a house go on the market, and there's all kinds of offers being made, and best offer, all that kind of stuff. But if you're approved like that, only subject to a property, it's almost like having cash, because you're done. This is what I'm approved for. I'm approved for $400,000 as a loan, and that's really the way you want to do it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That way, there's no gotchas after the fact, right? Yeah,
and that's that's the tricky point, is because a lot of loan officers they don't do that. They take the information, put it on, and self-employed people too. You have to get their tax returns, and you have to get their business returns, their personal returns. Now, I know loan officers that just look at it and say, yeah, this is what you make. That's not the way to do it, because there's so many things that you can deduct, and then there's items that you can put back into that qualifies for income for a self-employed person. So you got to be very diligent in that. And the more experienced loan officers will do that. They won't just say, hey, yeah, you're good.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything's important, right? From tax returns but what are the most important things when you're going for a loan?
I think the most important thing is to understand that documentation is going to be paramount, right? And number two is, don't ever think that you're going to hide something from me, because I am worse than a priest, okay?
Yeah.
Because even though I can go and get your credit report, I also have access to doing what they call a fraud report. And a fraud report will tell me things like what properties you've owned, whether you've been in foreclosure, what bankruptcy, if you have had bankruptcies, all that stuff. So, people sometimes try to hide things. And the very first thing I say is, look, you know what, do yourself a favor. You're never going to get it by me. Okay. You won't. I will find whatever I need to find. And so the most important thing for anybody is to be honest, tell me what's going on, and then I can help you. If you put your cards on the table, I can help you.
You can work with them.
And go from there. Don't tell me you have a great credit score. What rate am I getting? I have a great credit score. I could talk to somebody on the phone at this stage in my career, and basically they call in 2 minutes into the conversation. I can almost guess at what their credit score is. That's how, it goes after so many years of doing this. And I think we're talking about borrowers, and the biggest thing for me is, you get on the phone with somebody, we don't know each other, right? Yeah. And here I am asking these very personal questions about somebody's information, and it can be somewhat evasive because I'm asking some tough questions, and what I try to do is put myself in that borrower's shoes and have some empathy for whatever the situation is, because people call up and they may have had a bankruptcy or something, and they feel, all of a sudden they're talking to this guy on the phone, and especially if it's friends, hey John, I want to tell you I had a bankruptcy. All right, it's okay. Yeah. Relax. Just be honest with me. Tell me what the deal is, and we'll go from there. The big one is always child support. I pay child support. Well, listen, you know what? It's easy to look up, and go from there. So those are some of the things that you face. And the credit report usually will tell me some things that, believe it or not, that I can help them with. A lot of times, credit is made up of two big things. It's history, which is about 30%, and then it's credit capacity. So capacity is, let's say you have a $5,000 credit limit on a credit card and you're using 4,900 of it. Well, you have no capacity. So one thing that we can help you with is to be able to get those scores up is, hey, pay this credit card down to this amount, and we will do a rapid rescore, and your credit score will go to this amount. Right. So pretty easy to do. And there's all kinds of ways to help people with, increasing their credit, because credit is paramount to everything that you're going to do. It's your rate, it's your options, it's your percent down, it's your PMI insurance, it's everything. So anytime I can help somebody and enhance it, we'll do that.
Yeah, you mentioned something. I think you've mentioned this to me before about people try to hide child support. How do you find out about child support? Where does that show up?
There's a lot of places. Sometimes it's garnished in their wagers. Sometimes, it's answering the questions. And the questions: are you married or unmarried, or separated? And a lot of times people will say they're separated, and we will ask for the separation agreement, and we'll ask for the divorce decree. So the separation agreement will tell us what they are obligated to pay to each other for the child support or alimony or anything
Right.
like that. It will be all spelled out. And that's the way we find out a lot of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
So basically, good documentation, pay down your debts, keep your nose clean, and you should be good to go.
Yeah, and I think people, rate is very important to everybody. Let's face it, right? But after doing this for 20 years, rates are the most important thing is to have service. I don't get paid on rates, so I'm going to give you the best rate I can possibly give you. But if you can't get answers to your questions, if you can't get, I've had young borrowers especially, they're so hung up on rate that they can't see straight. They're worried, what's my rate, when they don't even know what their gross income is. I mean, but as time goes on, people start to get experienced at it, and that, they know that they're going to have to answer these questions, and they want answers to their questions. And that's the worst thing is for me is somebody who calls and, wants answers. I've been at Sunday dinners at 2:00 sitting at the table and said, honey, I'll be right back, and run upstairs and get online and answer the question. They're all looking at me like, what are you doing? Have some time off. But the reality is that they are looking for the answers to the questions. And when they get them, they can do a deep breath.
Right.
And they can relax. If they don't get the answers, they don't relax, and they're all hung up, and and that's not the way you want to go through the process.
Yeah. No, and I know you've talked to me about this before, about, anyone can go online and, submit a form and just, but I still don't think you can replace the personal touch.
No,
right.
And I think it's important because you don't do this every day. How many mortgages do you actually get? I mean, I do this constantly, right? So somebody calls up and says they want to get a mortgage. They may have only done it once, twice, 3 times, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the rules change. If this was 2001, I get a credit report. We could do stated income, and away we go. Those days are long gone. So now, one of the biggest battles I always face is a young person coming in, and they listen to their dad, their friends, or whatever. They got a mortgage 10 years ago. Oh, you don't need to get that. Why are they asking you for that? You don't. What? That's ridiculous. You don't need. That's not the way it works.
After that big real estate crash in 2008, around that, a lot of the rules changed.
Yeah, and at first it was difficult, but to be honest with you, a lot of loan officers fell by the wayside to boot. They weren't used to working with a customer and asking the questions and putting themselves in that. They were used to, hey, your credit score is this, boom, send it out and done. Now, the more you talk to people and the more questions you're asking, and again, it goes back to you're asking people some very personal questions, and sometimes those questions are very difficult.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to, be very empathetic with them, understand that everybody has, no matter who you are, everybody's had some kind of a issue in their life.
Yeah.
And
no
the
doubt.
more honest you are, the easier it is for me to help. So I always say to people, put everything on the table. Let's sit at my kitchen table, put it all on the table, and let's fix it.
Yeah, and something, you get it out of the way quicker, I would think, than belaboring the point, right?
Yeah, and sometimes that's hard. I mean, I've had people from Somerville want to do a mortgage with me, and I've known them all my life, and they don't want to share things because hey, I don't want to tell John Reidy that. But the reality is that I try to make it comfortable for them. I try to make it realistic for them, and I try to help them in any way I can. And sometimes that's difficult.
Yeah.
sometimes it's easy if you get the picture.
Yeah, sometimes dealing with friends can be tough, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is tough because you're asking some very personal questions, like I said, and you know, um, sometimes you don't want to share things.
Yeah,
and
no.
that's the hard part.
I do have a question for you, though.
Sure.
You own a piece of property. When does it make sense to refi? Rates have been historically low, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, what I like to try to do when somebody calls for a refinance, the first thing everybody needs to know is it is very difficult to give specific answers on refis right away because you don't have all the information, right? You may have applied, but we need to know what your taxes are, what you've paid out. There's a lot that goes into it. That's why the government gives you what they call a 3-day right of rescission, which means that you can go to a closing, sign all the documents, and then 3 days later you say, I don't want to do this, doesn't make sense, and you walk away. The only thing you lose is your the appraisal
earnest money, right?
Yeah, you paid, right, on a refinance.
So let me get this straight. You close on a property, where does that money sit? Where's the funding at that point?
If you're, I'm not following you.
Well, no. So if I'm buying a property and we closed today.
Yep.
And I have funds that I've transferred to the new buyer, or excuse me, the reverse. The buyer is buying something off of me, and he changes his mind. I've already got his money, right?
Oh yeah, that will be all refunded.
So I would have to. What if I go out and spend it, go to Vegas and blow it all? Then what do I do?
Good luck. You'll be joining the rest of that crowd up in Concord.
Yeah, I would venture to guess that doesn't happen very often, though.
Yeah, but go back to your question, because I think we combined something we shouldn't. Basically, when you're doing a refinance, the question is whether the refinance makes sense or not. And what I try to do is to look at how much you're going to save, so what is the old rate, what's the new rate, and how much is that going to save you in interest over the life of the loan? And then you look at that and you say, okay, right now, if you do nothing, you're paying $200,000 in interest. You've paid 3 years of it, and now you want to refinance. I'm going to bring you down 1.5 points, and you're going to save this amount of interest over the life of the loan. Now, that's important, but what's more important is how many people stay in a house for 30 years?
Yeah.
Not many.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is say, okay, you're going to save this amount over 30 years, but divide it out by year. Let's say you stay in that house for 10 years. This is what you're going to save. So if you're in the house every year, this is what you're saving per year, and this is what you're saving in 10. Now, does it make sense for you to refinance? Right. Now you've got the information properly, and now you can make a good decision.
Yeah, because there's got to be like a break-even point of, all the closing costs associated with refinancing and then the savings. And I would think if you're going to plan on being in the house for a year or two, it doesn't make any sense, obviously.
Yeah, and a lot of times I get a call for a refinance, they're only interested in the rate. They're not interested in anything else. And that's where you have to talk to people and explain that I can't just give you an answer, because I can give you, I could have somebody that's in an FHA loan, for example, and they're paying high PMI, but their value of their property has gone up. And not only can I reduce their rate, but I can also eliminate the PMI, right, because now they have 20% equity in their house. So now you're talking maybe you could be saving only $50 in the rate, but you're eliminating $250 of PMI insurance.
Yeah. Does PMI automatically get canceled when you have 20% equity in the house, or do you have to actually apply for it?
Typically, you would call the bank, or the bank would know when your time frame would be. But today the value of properties are going up so quickly. people are looking at it and say, wait a minute, I should be out of PMI right now. So in a conventional loan, by law, they have to take PMI away as long as you're at 20% equity, right? In FHA, if you've done an FHA loan,
I haven't.
it's for the life of the loan.
Oh, really?
So you have to refinance to get out of it. And sometimes people don't realize that. I have a guy right now that got him a refinance out of FHA. He's only saving $20 on the interest rate, but he's eliminating $285 of PMI insurance.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's not worth it. I'm not making it. Well, yeah, it is, because right now, if you do it, you get rid of the PMI. If you come back in 10 years to say, okay, now I want to get rid of the PMI because I really know that I can do this. What if the interest rates are much higher? You just eliminate the fact that you can't refinance now.
Yeah.
So it was a tough one because he just wouldn't listen. And
yeah.
He was,
Well, what do you see? I mean, obviously with the economy the way it is and new president in office and everyone's worried about taxes going up, and what do you see for the future of interest rates?
Well, I would say this. Number one, without question, the housing, no presidency wants to see the housing market die.
Right.
As soon as the housing market's in trouble, you're going to see some things happen, right?
Right.
So interest rates come from the bond market and mortgage-backed securities. So when you see the stock market doing really well, typically that means interest rates are going to go up. But
right.
In today's environment, what you're seeing is that just after we had the mortgage crisis, the Fed was buying mortgage-backed securities, and they bought them for a while, and then they stopped buying them, and the natural market came about, and all of a sudden we were below 3%, and it was all natural phenomenon, if you will, right? Now we see some changes. The presidency has changed. There's things going on. You see gas prices going up,
yep.
And the Fed's starting to buy mortgage-backed securities again because they want to make sure that interest rates stay at a reasonable level so that the housing market doesn't stop. Because once the housing market stops in this country, we're done.
Yeah.
So I don't see rates going tremendously high. I see that we might get some help for some time with the Fed, and I don't think any administration wants to be the one that says that they were the catalyst in how the housing market just stopped.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want my name to be attached to that one.
No.
Yeah, that's so. Johnny, getting on a personal note, you've had some career change in life, and you've been in the mortgage business for a while. And how you liking it? I mean, you've been in what, maybe 10 years now?
No, I've been in the mortgage business now, believe it or not, for going on 20 years.
Has it been that long? I don't know why I thought it was less than that.
Yeah, no, I spent my early part of my career in the food business, which, I enjoyed, I liked, if you will, but I always felt that I was missing something. And the way I articulate that is that, as a mortgage loan officer, I get up at 4:00 in the morning. I'll stay work until 11:30 because I love it, right?
Right.
I love doing this. I love helping people, and I love the satisfaction when somebody says, "Hey, thank you so much. You just helped me get into my house." Now, it sounds kind of corny.
Sure.
Oh, you helped this person's dream come true, right?
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time in the food business, and I never felt that satisfaction like I do with mortgages and helping people. And ironically, I was coaching T-ball with a guy, and he worked at Wells Fargo, and he used to say to me, "Come on, you should be in the mortgage business. You'd love this." And then, listen, I got 300 people working for me in the food business, and I enjoy my life. I'm not changing anything. then we had a reorganization, and at PepsiCo with Tropicana that I worked for. All of a sudden, I found myself saying, "Hey, let me try this." And I met his boss and Lorraine at Wells Fargo, and he said, "When do you want to start?" I said, "Start Monday." And I've never turned back. I mean, It was I had to learn.
Sure.
The business. I knew about marketing. I knew about sales. I knew about how to speak to a customer, but I needed the mechanics. And
sure. The tools.
And I work with some good guys now that I've worked with at Wells, and they went to Prime Lending, and they talked me into coming here, and it's been tremendous because they're the guys I grew up with in the business. And, they certainly helped me along the way.
Yeah. So for me personally, you working for Prime has been good for me because their corporate offices in Dallas, and I've gone to a few of your events over the years.
Yeah, we've snuck you in a few times. Got a few bad badges for you.
You get a, and it's always in the wintertime, so you always bring your sticks down, and we play a little golf, and so it's always a fun few days,
Yeah, my boss Vinny always used to say to me, "Who is this guy you just got a tag for?" I said, "It's a friend of mine from Somerville. He's coming to the party. Relax." So we've had a few of those. Those are great. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do any of that stuff.
Last couple of years, right? You haven't, been off for obvious reasons. But and so not to plug your company, but before you worked for Prime, I had already actually done a couple of loans with Prime, and I'm very pleased with them. How efficient they are. Now, granted, the woman that I worked with was just great to work with, but I've had no issues with Prime. They make it real easy to get a loan, so can't say anything. It's a shameless plug for your company, John.
Well, that's fine. That's good. And the reality is I'll tell you the truth is Prime Lending, we're not a bank. We're not a credit union, and we're not mortgage brokers. We're a mortgage company.
Right.
So everyone in this company, from the CEO down, has at some point in their life written a loan. Now that's different from a bank because banking is a totally different function, and it's totally different. So everything we do is all about mortgages, and we try to look at things from a standpoint of not what we can't do, but what can we do to help a customer achieve their dream. And that's really one of the biggest things that makes it so different being here. And I love the fact that, growing up in Somerville, we'll touch upon a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Has helped me in many, many ways, to be honest with you, because, your first guest there, Bobby Martini, I've known a lot longer than most people know and realize because.
That show, by the way, there's not even a close second with how many views and downloads we got. Yeah. Everyone loves gangsters. Everyone loves gangster stories, right?
Right. And Bobby is. I'll make a plug for Bobby. All right. Because, I've known him a long time. The one thing I tell you about Bob Martini that, maybe doesn't come across a lot, he has a heart of gold.
Yeah.
And, he comes across sometimes as, the big
tough guy.
Tough guy gangster. Hey, Bob, it's Reidy. I'm talking about you, by the way. And you know what? He has a heart of gold. And when things were open, I knew where they were every Friday. So whenever I went up to Boston, he's taking care of, people that he's been friends with for all his life. Yeah. Bobby Rassicott and even Howie, Howie Winter.
Yep. Yeah. He went to see him all the time.
Yeah. He all the time. And Bob's got a good heart. He's a good soul, and he's a good guy to know.
Yeah. So I may have him back by popular demand. I've had a lot of people, say, hey, when are you going to do part 2? Because quite honestly, Johnny, I read his book. I had like 3 pages of notes. Right? We got to about a page and a half, 2 pages. There's still a lot of other stories.
Oh, yeah.
That, but I don't want to go too long. In a podcast, you don't want to go for an hour and a half, 2 hours. You lose your guests. But I had so many people, even down here, people that don't know him, people from the gym that I work out that follow me. they were raving about that show. They said, one of the guys, it's just the other day, a guy says, yeah, I started Googling Bobby Martini. I want to learn more about this guy. He goes, that was a fabulous show. So, again.
Oh, he's awesome. The only problem with Bob is that I've spent a lot of time with Bob, all right? And, the one thing I've always learned is to never sit beside him.
Yeah.
Because when he tells a joke, he has this very, very distinct tendency to think he's in the boxing ring again. So as he's telling the joke and you're laughing, he's backing you in the side. I remember one night I said to him, Bob, I'm laughing so hard, you're killing me, but my side's killing me because you keep hitting me. Stop hitting me. But he's a lot of fun. But our experience growing up in Somerville, has probably given me more insight into things. And remember, I know Bob from I played with Pierrot's Pipers and a lot of those things that I learned more about. I know a lot of the stories from Bob,
sure.
And I know Bob and I share stuff that he looked at me and goes, how'd you know that? Because I knew some of those guys.
The characters,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, the characters.
So it's funny, I'd almost want to have, we talked to some of the East Somerville guys having a podcast just on, how did we get out, right? And it could be anywhere USA, right? I mean, but, we know a lot of guys that went the opposite direction, went to prison, committed murder, went, prison for, armed robbery and whatever. And there's a whole slew of those guys. But our crew, I mean, and you tend to gravitate towards people like yourself. We're all jocks. We're all athletes. We all hung out together. We all did well in life.
Hey, I'll tell you a funny story. I don't even know how old I was, but we were down and this is the reason why. So my father and mother were very lenient, yet on the same token, they watched me like a hawk, right? And my father was a Korean War veteran. He was a tough dude, and I always wanted to do the right thing, right? And because I didn't want the wrath of Donald at all, right? And I certainly didn't want to cross him in any way. So a little funny story. I was down in Dilboy Field and I got, it was these, I don't know what they were called, statues, things. That's an MDC cop comes up and he arrests me and this other guy for breaking them. Like, what are you talking about? We didn't break them. They were like this. We're just sitting here. So he puts us in the car and takes us away. And I'm sitting there and I'm literally shaken up, right? And the kid that I was with is like, what are you upset for? I said, I was, a little teary-eyed, right? And, he tells everybody, oh, Johnny Reidy, he was crying in the squad car. So one day I saw him and I said, let me tell you something. You know why I was upset? Because you didn't have to go home and tell your father.
Yeah.
Because when I told my father, I was afraid I was going to get, the beating of a lifetime.
Yeah. That's a whole,
and,
now you're touching on a point that, parenting then was different than parenting. Now you can't discipline your kids with your hands, but the fear factor came into play, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
I think your father was probably like my dad. We didn't get hit just because for no reason. We usually had to do something.
Yeah. And my father wasn't always like that, but I mean, let's face facts, I was afraid of him for the longest time.
I was scared to death of my father. Yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
And I think that, the fact that they were around, the fact that, and this is the other thing about Somerville that probably makes more sense. It was a small yet very popular place, right?
Yeah.
So as an athlete, you got a free pass on a lot of things because your name was in the paper all the time. And that's all I wanted. I lived for is to see my name in the paper and to do things that got me recognition. And then, of course, when you're growing up, nobody bugs you when you're an athlete because they're not going to, hey, Johnny, you want to play with my team? Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
And nobody bugs you.
So it's funny you say that, Johnny. Martini said the same thing. He said, the athletes kind of did their own thing. We were kind of left alone. We didn't get caught up in all the other stuff that was going on. We're all playing ball.
Yeah, we're too busy. I mean, the guys that didn't play ball, the guys that didn't, face it, you go to a ball field today and nobody's there. When we were kids, loaded. I can remember going down at Dilboy Field and I used to work harder because, Charlie Ciccone would pick the team, right? I was 12, they were 15 or whatever. And I just wanted him to pick me so bad that, if he didn't pick me, I would be like,
Yeah.
But that's all we did. The kids that were in trouble, they were down on the other side of the park scheming because they had nothing to do.
Yeah.
Or they were.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you say that. I hung out on the other end of the city growing up at Glen, and it was the same way. We'd hang on the basketball courts playing ball till all hours of the night, while the guys on the other side of the park, won't mention names, they were doing, getting in all sorts of trouble. I mean, I seen, I don't want to get into it. I seen guys, gunfights, just this crazy stuff. But we were all clean cut guys, right? We would, we weren't straight A students, but we were decent students and decent athletes and went on to do good things.
Well, it's funny because, one thing that I should preface this was that, I was afraid of my father, but my father and mother gave me a lot of leeway too.
Yeah.
Once they knew what I was doing. So Friday nights, I'd go down to Weston Junior High and play basketball until 12 o'clock at night. Nobody, I wasn't in trouble. We were playing basketball. And,
our parents knew where we were. Well, there wasn't many places. Some of it was 2x2. So they knew you were either down the park, down the schoolyard. Yeah, I mean, there's only so many places you could go.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. Well, hey, Johnny, we could go on for an hour about Somerville, but I did want to touch on Somerville because any of the Somerville guys I have on, I want to kind of touch on the effect that it had on us because it did. It definitely impacted our lives, and some of us weren't so lucky, but you've done very well for yourself. I'm proud to call you my friend.
Well, you know what? We've been friends for a long time, and I'm proud to be your friend. And I'm very happy that we've kept in touch over the years. And it's one thing that a lot of guys that we grew up with, they're not here anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
The Tommy Rileys and guys that I grew up with. That, God, the Rileys.
Just recently this year, Johnny Rogan passed away.
Johnny Rogan, who I'd see down in when I'd ever come, up to Boston and see Johnny, and we would laugh, and it was so good to see him, and like Tommy Riley, I played hockey. I spent so much time with Tommy growing up, and then all of a sudden I hear he passes away. It's hard.
Terrible.
So I'm very happy that we've kept in touch, and several other people as well.
Same here. Yep. It's my longest friend, I think, is Vic Silvestri, who we started hanging out together when we were 5 years old, and we're still friends to this day. I mean, my wife thinks that's amazing that I still have friends, but we're friends for a reason, right? I mean, if it wasn't a good relationship, I
talk to Tommy Sullivan all the time. He's up in Saratoga, and we've been friends since we were probably 8 or 9. His mother and my mother were very good friends, and obviously Mark, his older brother, was very good friends with me as well, and so it was good. But one thing I would say about Somerville that I don't think gets said often enough is some of the influences that we had growing up. And what I mean by that is we were very fortunate. We had people that, for the most part, the coaches that we had growing up were, I can't say enough about them. Guys like Jim Papaluca and Jimmy Wilson, John Doncaster. I could go on forever, but Bob Nason. These guys were so influential in helping us navigate some difficult waters, because what I think you and I have talked about this, you never know what's going on behind closed doors. And in some of them, I'd go to school and see somebody and you wouldn't know why that person looked like they were, going to fall apart, because you didn't know what the hell was going on behind.
You find out, we've heard a lot of stories through Fran Ferraro, who was a kind of a mentor of ours in East Somerville. We found out years later all the horror stories of things that he knew that he couldn't share with us at the time, but years later. And so, it's
and you think about those kids, going home and having to face that, and then go to school, and you wonder why sometimes. There was somebody, I can't remember his name, he used to always be mad, and he always wanted to fight everybody too. And now that I think back to that and realize, I know some people that knew his family. No wonder, because his life was a raving mess, and he'd leave that house to go to school, but he always had to come home, and that was the nightmare that he was living. And
I hear you. So, well, at any rate, Johnny, I think
all right.
Think we've chewed the fat long enough here, but thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate. We've been talking about doing this for a while, so I'm glad we finally made it happen.
No, I'm very thankful that we could make it happen. I'm glad I was here to do it with you, and thanks everybody for allowing me to come in and share some things about mortgages and some things about
life in general. So
there you go.
So hey, that's a wrap for Business Brains and the Bottom Line. Until next time, signing off, Paul Delegro.